are back with the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Callie. As always, I'm joined by none other than Dom Lawson. Dom, week 4 of the NFL season already here, moving very, very quickly. The Bills are 3-0, undefeated. Will it stay that way? We don't know. We sure hope so. Baltimore Ravens, they're heading on that 3-game road trip here. The first stop is Baltimore, and, they're a scrappy team. They're 1-2 on the season. Could have been 0-3. Glad they're not, because I think that might help some desperation from it might stop it a little bit and tone it down. But still, 1-2 in a tough competitive AFC is not going to get you a great playoff spot on the seeding list. So I think they're still looking to get a little better record, guys. I mean, what are your base thoughts before we dive into some X's and O's here and preview what's coming up?
Yeah, I think it's funny that we're starting this the 3-game road trip, the gauntlet of death per se, of going to Baltimore, going to Houston, and then having to have to go on the road against a division rival. And I think it is funny to say that I think a lot of Bills fans would have, if you would have looked at the first 6 weeks of the year and you just said the Bills would be 3-3 after those first 6 weeks, I think a lot of fans would have said, sign me up. Where on the down line do I sign? And so I'm not saying they're playing of house money here, because obviously you don't want to go on a 3-game losing streak now to go to 3-3, but
yeah,
it does feel pretty good that they've kind of gotten the 3 wins, and now it's kind of okay, maybe we didn't think Baltimore was a super winnable game in the beginning of the year, but I think those odds have kind of shifted. I still think, they're 1.5 favorite underdog, excuse me. I mean, they're still 1.5, 2.5 points underdog against Baltimore, which I guess is expected. You're in an AFC contender's home building. But I definitely think going into the year, you probably were okay, maybe 40-45% chance of winning, and now you're probably closer to 48-50. So yeah, I'm super excited to talk about the game, and it should be a good game. I mean, it's prime time Sunday Night Football. We get to see the cool player intros. Lily, my favorite part of NBC Sunday Night Football is the player intros. I just think it's awesome. So
yeah,
I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I cannot wait. As you know, I already specified this on the last episode of just the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm a big fan of the music for Sunday Night Football. I think it's one of the better themes out there. There will be a show on that in the bye week, so that might be our bye week betting on the Bills. Who knows where that at? But yeah, the player intros. Carrie Underwood waiting all day for Sunday night, and then you got the Mike Tirico coming in hot. Welcome to Orchard Park, or it'll be M&T Bank Stadium this time around. I'm really looking forward to it. It's everyone going into Jacksonville. Oh, it's a trap game. Jacksonville's a trap game. They're going to lose, blah, blah, blah. Now it's okay, they're 3-0. Coming along the line somewhere. They're not going to go undefeated. And you're just okay, you got to brace for it. I know, Baltimore would be the team to, again, like I said, they're scrappy. That would be the team that would mess things up for you. And then you play a division rival, and then you got the Stephon Diggs revenge game. It's any of these can go either way, I feel like, and it's just kind of an unsettling feeling, especially on the road. You don't get the Bills Mafia. I mean, they travel, don't get me wrong, but you don't get the Bills Mafia in the house like you do at Highmark Stadium. But what do you say we jump right in here to the offensive performance that they're going to need? And we've seen both sides of the coin all season. You've seen Allen putting the cape on percent week 1, 4 touchdowns to himself, 2 rushing. Week 2 against the Dolphins, defense in the running game just took care of business. Allen didn't really have to do anything. Week 3 against the Jags, it was a passing fair, right? Allen wasn't rushing for big touchdowns or anything like that. He wasn't hurdling over players, but he was still getting chunk plays on the ground. He was the team's leading rusher, and he threw for a few touchdowns. So you've seen the Josh Allen experience in full effect this season. And this game, I mean, what do you think? Is this going to be more of a passing game, or is this going to be a Joe Brady run game masterclass on man beaters, all that stuff?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a mixture of week 3 and week 1. I don't think, the Bills are really going to get tested this game by the Ravens defensive line, arguably the best D-line they're going to play up to this point, I should say. especially in the middle. They have Michael Pierce, they have Travis Jones. Those dudes are known to be elite run stoppers. I mean, they're like 350 pounds. They're impossible to move. And then you also have Metabike, who had, I think, 12 and a half sacks in the middle of that defense last year. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for this, interior offensive line that's played solid, and you want them to continue that. I mean, they have a couple decent edge rushers, Van Noy, Owe, but they're really built in the middle of that D line. So I think it's going to be really hard for the Bills to run the ball. I mean, this is, in some metrics, the number one rushing defense in the entire NFL. But they have been so far, statistically, one of the worst pass defenses. Now, I think some of that's just situation, like Dak and the Cowboys just threw the ball because they were losing by 20 points. 20-6.
Right.
Mahomes didn't have a great game. Week 2, but Minshew had a pretty nice game against them. Devontae, Adams had a really solid game against them in week 2. You saw Brock Bowers, a tight end, have a good game. Ferguson had a big game against them, last week. So I think there is definitely some weaknesses in that secondary. They're a little older now. Again, I don't think they have quite the elite high-end edge rushers. So again, if they can kind of control the middle of that pass rush, give Josh a clean pocket, I think there's going to be mismatches, especially for Kincaid in this game. It's going to be interesting to see, though, what the Ravens do with Kyle Hamilton, the first team All-Pro safety, because he's a great safety and he's a chess piece, right? They move him around. He makes a lot of plays. It does feel like this year they've moved him around close to the line of scrimmage. And for some, like that's not entirely like his strength, right? His strength is being a safety and being able to move around, and him being close to the line of scrimmage isn't. I don't think they're maximizing him as much as they did last year. Obviously, a new defensive coordinator, right? Because Mike McDonald went to Seattle, so it's going to be interesting to see how kind of that evolves. So I think their pass defense is definitely their weakness point. I don't think it's like some metrics have it as 32nd ranked. I don't think they're that bad, but I think they're gettable, and I think we're going to see a big passing attack. They do play some man coverage, so I think we're going to see a pretty good, a lot of passes, a lot of quick passes, trying to get your playmakers out in space and get some yak.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on pretty much everything you said. They're a big rushing defense, and while I think James Cook is great, one of the areas you've seen James Cook struggle is the Ken Dorsey effect, just running him up the middle. And like you said, these guys aren't moving. He's not going to be able to touch them. He's not a power back. Your best shot is Ray Davis on the goal line, but really just shove the quarterback through at that point. I should say, though, before I get any further, the Ravens are favorited by 2.5 points. So they're not giving them quite a field goal, not quite the home field advantage that they normally give out, but they still think the might have the edge. Vegas does at least. So but I agree with you. The fact that I think it'll be kind of a combination of week 1 and 3. Josh Allen might not put the full cape on. He might, have just the boots and the cape, not the full Superman suit, if you will. But it's going to be, if you're a fantasy manager of Josh Allen, like I am, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I think you're going to be happy with his performance this week against the Ravens passing defense that kind of has gotten a lot older. But now looking to the defense, right? The Bills.
I do want to say one thing too, which is important about the Ravens defense. I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but again, new D coordinator trying to figure out in the first month. They also lost Patrick Queen,
right,
a Pro Bowl linebacker, to their arch rival Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency. But that's what made them so good last year. They lost Clowney as well, who was arguably their best edge rusher last year. Like, they have some losses on that defense. Obviously, the scheme's a little different because McDonald left. So I think, again, the middle of that defense is a little bit more weaker than, when you have 2 stud linebackers, it shuts everything down in the middle of the field. And now when you have one, Roquan Smith's a great player, but the other the other linebackers have been kind of trying to rotate and trying to find a solution, and they've been harassed by Brock Bowers and Jake Ferguson. So again, that's where I think we're going to see a pretty big game from Kincaid, and this is a team, again, that struggled a little bit in pass coverage. So with Josh, and then I think this week 1, Josh, I think he's going to have to be Superman to win this game still to an extent, because the Ravens, I think, are a very talented team. Arguably, you can make a very easy case that they're more talented than the Bills, and they're on the road. So,
yeah, you're 100% on with that, and it's like you might have previewed an X factor or maybe 2. Dalton Kincaid being one of them, but Khalil Shakir they use over the middle a lot. So like that could be he's been huge this season. So yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. And they have on the surface, I didn't realize how much talent they actually did lose. And then looking at it defensively, they have lost quite a bit in that middle of the field. So it should be an interesting game. And there's a reason it's on the primetime window. Very excited about that. But now heading to the defensive side of the ball, you've seen the Bills defense kind of just, I guess, for lack of a better term, kick ass and take names since the end of the first half of week one. Von Miller's been in the sack column all 3 games, right? He's getting pressures. He's pre-ACL Von Miller. You have Greg Rousseau getting back there. George even got a sack last week. They're picking off Tua left and right before Tua's unfortunate injury. Like, the Bills defense has been very solid. I think this will be with Lamar. I mean, you saw it week one with Kyler Murray, those mobile quarterbacks. I think that's the biggest test, defining the edge, right? Like, that's what I think you're going to see. But do you think you're going to see a similar performance from week one where they kind of had to dial it in? You're seeing what Lamar is going to give them a little bit. And the biggest X factor for the Baltimore Ravens, you have Derek friggin' Henry, who's going to just run through you faster than a school bus in a school zone. Like, he's just going to fly past you. So, I mean, what do you think there? What are your thoughts on the defense against this kind of loaded Ravens offense run game?
Yeah, I think it's a different Ravens offense because they didn't have a guy like Derrick Henry in the backfield with Lamar Jackson. So, I think it's an interesting thing because you kind of see Likely's emergence, but they've been kind of weird with his usage. Obviously, Mark Andrews, I don't know what's going on with Mark Andrews. Like, he had I think 1 target last week, played 30. I mean, he had that ankle injury last year. I just don't. Maybe he's just not 100%. So the passing attack, I think, Zay Flowers is a good receiver. Bateman is solid. But other than that, like, there's not a lot of wide receivers that you're afraid of. Obviously, the double tight ends, like, if they get Andrews going, if they get Likely going, that would be my concern. When we're just talking purely passing, is my concern would be this is a Bills team that has done a really good job on outside receivers all year, right? I think the best outside receiver may have been last week to Brian Thomas, and he had a couple catches in garbage time, and he had like 5 for 48. Like, Marv had to catch. Like, they've done a very good on these outside receivers. They have struggled mightily though against these slot receivers. These slot tight ends. That kind of, Greg Dortch had a good game against them week one. Christian Kirk, I think we alluded to as well in week 3. Obviously, Miami doesn't have the kind of like the personnel to really kill them on that. But we've seen 2 out of the last 3 weeks that they've really struggled. Taron Johnson already out. Terrell Bernard is going to be out. So again, that's kind of, I would be very concerned if we see a big Isaiah Likely, a Mark Andrews game, or they do like using Zay Flowers in the slot. Like, I would be really concerned about that. And then allude to your point about Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is like, this is what it feels like to run with an offense that's just not me, just slowly, not like just me. Like,
yeah, there's supporting pieces around.
There's support here.
Yeah.
Even when he's 30, I mean, 5 yards a carry now, he's going to be a load. And this is, again, it's very similar, I would say, to Arizona. Like, Arizona liked to run the ball with James Conner, kind of dominate the line of scrimmage. They had a mobile quarterback in Kyler Murray who got out for a couple times. They have a good tight end like Trey McBride, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews. They like using Zay Flowers in the slot. Dortch is solid enough. Obviously, they don't have the outside guys. Actually, they don't have a Marv. But I do think and that Arizona team move the ball on this Bills off defense really for most of the game, especially in the first half. And that would be my concern. But looking at this Ravens offensive line, they've really struggled. Like, this is not the same offensive line as last year, right? They let go of their right tackle, Morgan Moses. He went to the Jets. John Simpson, their left guard, also went to the Jets.
Yep.
Right. And then they're working in a new right guard, but he's, who's his name? Daniel Falele, who's like 6'8", one of the tallest offensive guards you'll see. He's really struggled. Their new left guard, Andrew Voorhees, is probably not going to play. He's in a walking boot. He's doing practice today. He's in a walking boot. So if he's going to be out, they play Patrick McCarry, who's the right tackle for the replacement for Moses. He might kick in to play guard. Then you have another, a backup right tackle in, and the guy's against who? Von Miller. So again, this is a big game for Von Miller because I think the tackles are gettable, and then also the interior of this offensive line is gettable with the injuries that they've had Linderbaum's a nice center, but we could see a big Ed Oliver game like we did in week 2. So I think there's a lot of good matchups for this defensive line in and on passing downs. Can the Bills coverage teams give them these opportunities? Can they contain Lamar Jackson? But most importantly, as you said, they have to stop the run. If they don't stop Derrick Henry in this ground game, they're just going to get pounded all night long.
Yeah, and that's the problem. There's the image of Derrick Henry just stiff arming Josh Norman out of existence, pretty much, right? Like Derrick Henry was the big reason the Titans just killed the Bills for all those years, until really the Titans offense kind of fell apart in general, and Derrick Henry was really the only thing they knew just how to shut him down. Like you said, there's a lot more going on here, but setting the edge, taking down Lamar on passing downs, like you said, I think the pass coverage is going to be fine. Can they just adapt, switch, know when the run is coming? That's going to be the big question. So listen, defensively, I think defense is going to be the biggest part, because I know the offense can march down the field and score. We've seen that. Josh Allen at the helm, they're going to be able to do it. It's going to be the offense against the Bills defense. But like you said, Ed Oliver, Von Miller, like those two could have seriously big games. Greg Rousseau getting around on the edge. Like you said, like there's a lot that could go right for the defense. So hopefully they take advantage of it, which leads into the X Factor conversation. Okay. Offensively, Kincaid's a good one for sure. Khalil Shakir is going to be mine, because the Bills this year have a safe man on third down, third and long, right? Cole Beasley was that safe man. That was Josh Allen's safety blanket. You just whip it to him on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 8, right? And Beasley would catch it. Not a big yak guy, not a big yak receiver, but he'd get you the first down, right? We've kind of found that in Khalil Shakir, and he's a little bit better on the yards after catch scenario if he has an open field. So I think Khalil Shakir is going to be the Bills' X factor on offense, making sure they get those first downs when they need to. I think he's going to be huge. What about you?
Yeah, I think Shakir is a good choice. I'll go. It's a little bit, I want to say not really cliche, but I alluded to the interior offensive line, and I think that's a massive X factor. But I'll go specifically, I think, Connor McGovern, the center, because you're playing in Baltimore in prime time. That's a tough place to play. That's going to be a loud crowd. You have to make all the calls as a center. We saw him do a good job of it in Miami, but now this is the next in a game that probably is going to go down to the wire, right? Like Miami was that weird kind of game where like the crowd was kind of dead by halftime, second quarter, and you're just kind of playing ball at that point. Like I want to see him in that atmosphere in the fourth quarter, game on the line, pouring third down. Hey, did you call the mic out correctly? Who has what protections? Where are you sliding to? Are you snapping the ball well? Like I think McGovern is a massive X factor. And also, as I alluded to, they're playing with some big boys in the trenches on the other side of that football. So he's going to get tested in pass protection and in the run game. So I'll go. It might be the only time we ever mention Connor McGovern as an X Factor MVP, but I think this is the week for it.
Yeah, no, perfect justification for it. And if it comes true, you could say the one time you've ever mentioned an offensive line for X Factor, and that's a forever stat. So let's hope that comes through. MVP of the game, though. This is tough because, again, cliche. I don't want to be cliche. I don't want to pick Josh Allen. I truthfully think it's going to be. I think you saw Kincaid get involved. You saw Kincaid get he hasn't been the most involved that you want to see out of him as a pass catching tight end, right? He's going to be a big part. He's going to be the end zone merchant, touchdown merchant, if you will, for the Bills. He's going to be the big man in the end zone, waving his hands up in the air, and I think he's going to have a day. He's going to show why. He's going to show who Dalton Kincaid is again. Show the city of Buffalo. What do you think? Who's your MVP of the game?
I mean, it has to be Josh, right? I mean, just like they're going to win the game.
Yeah, it has to be. I just tried to
go
in a
to
different direction.
Win. It's going to be Josh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there's like, it's easy to say, okay, Josh every week, but this is a week where it's like if they're going to win, it's going to be because Josh Allen was the best player on the field.
Mm-hmm.
That field was shared with a 2-time MVP, all I'm saying. Now,
Yeah,
to
two-time MVP
maybe say like a co-MVP, just so I'm just, a little bit off the mark a little bit, I'll go at Oliver. I allude to, again, I think this is a very gettable interior offensive line for the Ravens. I think they're going to need him to be that disruptor in the ground game, make Derrick Henry's feet stop, make him have to cut so he's not running downhill into the second level. Like, I think that's going to be big. And I think it's going to be big for him to kind of collapse that pocket around Lamar so he can't escape, and to get pressure on Lamar and make Lamar's kind of internal clock speed up a little bit and make him force him into some mistakes. So I think, again, if the Bills are going to win the game, it's because of Josh, right? But if the Bills are going to have a successful defensive day, I think it is because Ed Oliver had a monster game.
Okay. I like it. Now, to cap everything off here, score predictions. I think this is going to come down to the wire. Give me the Bills 24, Baltimore 21. I think it's going to be a close one. Defensive.
What was your score?
24-21 by field goal, Buffalo.
Yeah, so well, I'm either going to be 2-0 or 1-1. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to be either 1-1 or 0-2 picking against the Bills. But I think the Ravens are going to get this one done here. Okay. 27-24. I think for me, it just comes down to, I think the Ravens, the NFL is a humbling league. And I think the Bills are really high right now, which is fine, which is great. I just think this is kind of the spot where, like, you're on a short week, you're playing against a team that really hasn't played its best game yet, right? Like, they lost week 1 to the Chiefs. They blew that game to the Raiders at home. They didn't really play a 4-quarter game against the Cowboys. They almost blew that game. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's going to be, I just don't think this Bills defense, as with the injuries, I just don't think this Ravens offense is a good matchup for it. I think they could pound you on the ground with the split safeties. And I think, again, the slot with Likely, I think, is a mismatch, even if Mark Andrews is being down. And I just think defensively, they've always done a pretty good, like, the Bills have done a good job against Lamar, and the Ravens have done a good job against Josh, right? These always have kind of been like kind of slugfest games. The playoff game was 17-3. Last time they played, it was 23-20. Like, it's always kind of been really ugly, couple turnovers, couple missed field goals for each team. Like, I think this is going to be an ugly game. So actually, I'm going to change mine to 20-17. I think it's going to be a little low scoring than I just, but I think Tucker somehow comes through. Let's say he'll make a 50-yard field goal to snap his streak, but yeah.
You don't have Jordan Poyer anymore to pick Lamar off in the end zone to get the game winning.
Yeah, and break his ribs.
Yeah, Jesus, what a game that was. But all right, that's our Bills Ravens preview. Oof, this is going to be a good one. There's a reason it's prime time. I'm very excited for it, but we did want to make a habit of doing this. It's time to talk Dynasty League football. For the league Dom and I are in with a bunch of our buddies from high school, just that we've kept in touch with over the years, and Dom's brothers as well. So this is it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But I did send Dom a trade before the show started, but there's a lot going on roster wise. I feel like we have one statistician Ginge. Do you want to run down what statistician Ginge is doing in the league real quick, because he's going crazy. What he's doing. If you don't know who statistician Ginge is, you're newer to the show. Go back to our draft episode from a couple of years ago. We actually live streamed the draft, and it's our friend Gingy Tyler just sitting in the back of the stream doing. He's probably doing homework. I think he was doing a presentation, but he was doing stats, crunching numbers. So we called him statistician Ginge. So that's just the background. But let everyone know what he's doing in this league right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because his team is 2-1 now, but. Yeah. First off, he freaking edged me in the game last week. Again, if you listen to the last episode, I complained about Zach Moss killing my hopes. I rallied all the way back on Monday Night Football, Joe Burrow and Dalton Cade, just for Zach Moss to end me, and he beat me, and he was talking a bunch of trash, and rightfully so. But yeah, statistician Ginge has decided to kind of look to 25, but then he's also winning. It's weird. He has 3 first-round picks now. actually your first round pick that I traded him after you traded
Yeah.
to me. So, and then he's also projectively potentially maybe he's going to get the number 1 pick because he got Devontae Adams in a trade with me and then immediately flipped him for a first round pick, and that player then lost this week. And now it's 0-3 and might be 0-4. It has Christian McCaffrey and might be, but yeah, it's definitely been it's been crazy. It's highly active. It's funny to me. I tried to do some trades in just a normal redraft league, and I'm just having a hard time doing it. Like it's hard to make trades in redraft leagues without one side getting completely screwed. Like it just is. Like it's very hard to do fair trades because mostly then if it's fair, then why would they do it? Like
Yeah.
In Dynasty, it's kind of like it's not just what you're doing now, right? There's age, there's your roster build, the other team's roster build. Maybe you have some picks involved to kind of, hey, like it may not be a fair player to player trade, but I'll throw in a pick and it's like the value's kind of fair. Like there's just more ways to make trades in a Dynasty league, and in a redraft league, obviously it's player for player. Like it's you can't trade picks in a redraft league. No. That's not how it works.
But you can write it down for the next draft, but you can't really. I mean, that'd be collusion.
Yeah, no, you just can't do it. I mean, but it's definitely very interesting. But you and I have made a trade. We have another one in the works, which we might talk about next week.
Yeah, that'll be a next week topic. Let's go through the standings. I'm at the top. I haven't lost a game yet. I've tied a game. I'm 2-0-1 right now. So, and you are 2-1. So you're number 2. It's us on top right now. So this is it's a big week for you to come through and take down your brother Jeremy. You got to put another win in the win column. Stay on top of him. So, and
it's definitely tough because there's 2 0-3 teams. There's 1-1-1 team. You're 2-1. Then there's I think 3 2-1 teams or 4 2-1 teams.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4 2-1 teams. Yes, 4 2-1 teams.
Yeah, so I mean, it's difficult kind of to separate yourself right now through 3 weeks, and that's kind of some of the fun of it. And then kind of we're going to see kind of after this week because, as I alluded to, the 2 0-3 teams play each other. So really the top 6 teams all play one another, and we're going to see some separation after this week. And then a couple weeks from now, we're going to really see who's on the track to make the playoffs, who's going to miss. And then I think we're going to see some settling going on and more trades.
Some tanking, maybe. We'll see for sure for some draft picks. But yeah, I mean, the points for your brother Jeremy, who you're playing this week. 473 points. He's 6 overall in the standings right now. And you have 447 at number 2. I have 397 at number 1. So any given Sunday, really, anything can happen. So it's very
a little fraudulent there. I'm not gonna lie, Tops, but
I do, but the record speaks volumes. So I'm all for that. But 2-0-1, I still can't believe I tied. That's just, to me, that's crazy that even happened. But and it's because Robinson got held on a 4th and 1 or something like 4th and 2, I think it was, or something like that. Otherwise I'd be 2-1 right now. So undefeated on the season like the Bills. We'll see what happens. But anything else you want to add in before we wrap up?
No.
All righty. Well, we'll detail you in on that trade maybe if we get something done. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Buffalonian Podcast, Betting on the Bills. I'm Joe Cali. As always, I'm joined by none other than Dom Loss. Dom, how do we always end these, buddy?
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills.